DJ Newmark, you're known as the legendary Throwback King. What does the title mean to you, and how do you embody it in your performances and productions?
Well, I embody it because the era of music that I was raised up on, being in my mid-50s, is when rap and hip-hop was in this golden era, and R&B had a totally different sound, incorporating the two sounds of R&B, traditional R&B, and hip-hop. So now that, I've been in the game for 4 decades, that nostalgia that music is attached to is something that I literally embody, because it's not from a time period that I only heard about or read about. I lived it. And so it's easy for me to represent throwback music, whether it's R&B, hip-hop, freestyle, because that's basically the kind of music that I am and that I represent.
Okay. Growing up in a military family, you experienced music from all over the world. Can you share a moment when a particular place or culture influenced your sound or DJ style?
Yeah, that's a hard one, but I can remember being in the Philippines as a young teenager and being on this Air Force base where I was fortunate to have people from New York stationed there, people from California, and from the Miami area. That's when the big, bass type music was really, really, really booming. And so it was my first time not only hearing the diversity of hip-hop from those different regions, but being that I would get music from one person, I would literally transfer that music to the other person that gave me music. So they're from New York and I'm giving them California stuff, or they're from Miami and I'm giving them California stuff. And so, I always consider myself like one of the first ambassadors of hip-hop, especially overseas, being able to diversify the different cultures and make people aware of the different sounds.
Okay. How did your discovery by Russell Simmons' Entourage change your outlook on your career and your approach to music?
It really didn't, honestly, without sounding, that I'm full of myself. But, at that moment, I've always been very secure and confident in my abilities to entertain a crowd as a DJ. The only thing that experience actually did was it just put me on a grander stage that I was already ready for, and it exposed me to a network of people that had a greater appreciation for what I was doing because of the network that is associated with those type of celebrities. But as far as, it changing, how I approach music, not one bit. Matter of fact, what it did do is it pretty much just solidified all the confidence that I had in myself that I could rock a crowd no matter who or where I was at.
Okay. Excuse me. You performed in over 400 shows across 10 countries. What's one unforgettable moment from your touring life that still gives you chills?
Diamond, I can tell you I had the pleasure of being DMX's DJ for a short period of time, and we were in Louisville. And, DMX, God bless his soul, he was such a genuine person. And what you saw was exactly who he was. A lot of people in the industry have alter egos, but to see him cry on stage during prayer because his soul really was filled with turbulence, that it was often no matter, even in rehearsal, when we would get to that part of the show where he would do a public prayer, he would get emotional. So I've never had that raw emotion take over me, especially as a spectator during a performance. But that time in Louisville, I found myself very emotional.
Yeah. I had the honor of going to a DMX show here in Richmond years ago, and he got emotional on the stage while he was doing a prayer. So yeah, I know what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
With collaborations ranging from Vanilla Ice to DMX and the Oakland Raiders, how do you adapt your energy and sets for such diverse audiences and partners?
I think going back to my roots, being a military dependent, I was always cultured from a very, very young age, especially in music, to the diverse array of blended sounds. I think, one of the staples of what made my career as successful is that compared to most DJs is that they are organic to the area that they were raised in. So they can be slightly biased towards that music, where I don't have that bias because I moved around literally every 3 or 4 years of my life. So I developed a very diverse palette. So it doesn't matter if I'm in front of Vanilla Ice fans or Wu-Tang fans. I know what they listen to, and what I try to do is actually give them what they want, but then sneak in some stuff that they probably wasn't expecting.
Okay. I like a DJ like that. Yeah. As a member of the Funky Bunch, what's the group dynamic like today, and how do you keep the chemistry alive after all these years?
The dynamic is still pretty strong. Obviously, we know that Mark has hung up his MC role and concentrated on the more Hollywood traditional acting roles, and he's been pretty successful in that over the years. The rest of the Funky Bunch members, they stay in contact, much like most groups of that era. There aren't too many people that are quote rich, so people have 9 to 5s. They live relatively regular lives, and whenever there are shows like a MC Hammer tour or a Vanilla Ice tour that we were on, we suit up for the occasion and perform. But the Funky Bunch has been really, really close, and we're coming out with an album dropping later on this year. So, very excited. Obviously, Mark's not going to be on that, but we're very excited about the project.
Okay. Your latest album, Hot Tracks, includes songs recorded over 2 decades. How do you decide what makes the cut, and what story does this album tell about your evolution as an artist?
This project was a compilation of underground records that I had the pleasure of working with a lot of independent artists, as I traveled throughout the world. And it was an opportunity for those artists to go through the recording process, because a lot of them were just hobbyists. They weren't actual industry people. So to help bring some of their dreams to reality in a studio environment was pretty cool. And a lot of the music that I produced, it was a great textbook. There's a lot of producers, especially in hip hop, that started off as DJs. It's kind of one of those things where you get so used to blending other people's music and developing an ear for music that you start thinking, man, I should be able to make my own music. If I already know how songs are compiled and the structure, I should be able to do that. And so seeing some of my earlier recordings and seeing how my ear and my maturity as a producer progressed over time, it's kind of a scrapbook for myself as well.
Okay. You host the DJ Newmark Experience on Yo 107.1 FM, reaching over 21,000 listeners in an hour. What's your approach to connecting with such a global and diverse audience?
I got into broadcasting. That opportunity came during COVID, so everybody was shut in and people couldn't do nothing, and we definitely wasn't performing. So I had an opportunity that was presented here in my local hometown where I reside at right now in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I got to admit, it was different, especially during my show. I have a 30-minute actual mix show where I'm on the turntable. So up until that point, I'm just doing radio personality stuff, making announcements, reading off commercials, introducing the next song, stuff like that. So to DJ in front of a faceless crowd, even to this day, I kind of struggle because the majority of how I operate is by reading the energy of the crowd, and if I go a certain way and I'm seeing that I'm not getting that response that I initially thought, I can pivot. But when you're doing it, and you're looking at a wall, actually, because you're in the radio station, I'm not knowing if you in your car feeling this, or I'm not knowing, being that we syndicate globally through our website, that, I got people in the UK that stay up late at night because of the time difference to hear me play. So I don't know if they're feeling it. So it's a very interesting dynamic to where I don't get so service inclined, because as a DJ you're supposed to be selfless, right? And you're supposed to be service based. It's not what you want to hear, it's what they want to hear. So that was pretty hard, but the feedback over for 4 years now has been very positive, and so actually the highlight of my show. I like talking on the radio, but I'd rather talk with my hands.
That's nice. Hip-hop culture has evolved tremendously since you started. What changes excite you, and what do you wish would return from the old school days?
Man, I was just having a pretty in-depth conversation with another well-known artist in the industry. I think, I try not to be, I know earlier in our conversation, Diamond, I talked about me not having any prejudice as far as the sound of music because it's regional. But I will say, in all honesty, I do have a bias against today's music, and it's both hip-hop and R&B compared to the music of the 90s and early 2000s. And I think, the good thing about technology, and that's a slippery slope, but, it allows more people to penetrate the industry. Back in the day, you had to go through a lot of red tape and a lot of people, and you got to impress a lot of folks just for someone to hear your stuff. Nowadays, anybody with a laptop and a computer that's connected to the internet, they can make something in their bedroom, and within 10 minutes, it's uploaded and out for the universe. I think, allowing more people that resource to have their dreams come true to whatever scale of success, whether it's one person downloaded it or 100,000 people. I just think that part is beautiful. Now, with that being said, being that anybody can do it, I think we've lost a lot of quality control in today's sound. One of the things that we had to go through back in the day as an artist was a thing called artist development. And so artist development wasn't just about you knowing how to record. Artist development was knowing how to perform. You hear a lot of these artists that sound good, their songs might be all right, but then you go and watch them perform, and it's lousy. They're not even performing. They're just standing there, grabbing their crotch or whatever, and it's just we lost a lot of that. And so, it's good and bad. I'm never going to not support today's music because, remember, when we first came out, the generation before us said that rap wouldn't last. They're like, what's this hippity-hoppity stuff? So, I just won't do that because it was done to us. But, yeah, I wish there was some way that we can refine today's artists. And, again, it's not just with rap. R&B looks different today. Like real quick, you look at the top 100 Billboard of R&B music, name me 2 artists that's over the age of 50. You're not going to find it. But back in the 90s, we still had Luther Vandross singing, Aretha Franklin, Shaka Khan. We still had these people who were grown as men and women putting out quality sounds, and we just don't have that today.
Yeah. Okay. What advice do you have for aspiring DJs and producers who want to build a lasting, authentic career in today's fast-changing music industry?
You got to know a couple things. First thing is know your history. If you're a DJ, understand what I went through, being that I'm the generation that was part of the birth of the hip-hop music. And back in the day, when I started, it was all about the DJ. The rappers and all that, they were secondary. It was all about the DJ. We've kind of changed over the years where it's flipped. Now it's all about the rapper, and most rappers nowadays don't even have a DJ. So I would tell a youngster that's getting into this DJing thing, if you're going to consider yourself a DJ. Now, if you're just going to be some controller, technical guy, then I don't necessarily consider you a DJ. And as long as you don't consider yourself a DJ, there's no problem. But if you think that you're a DJ, right, then there's an art form to that. And you got to respect the art form. And then, not only know your history, but talk to OGs like me. Talk to the unks out there, because even though maybe 50, 60% of what I'm going to say doesn't apply today, there still is, a historic value. Much like, what we try to tell our urban communities, know your history. Know the struggles of the people or the demographic that you represent, and that will help you move forward. Even though we don't have, time to change, we don't have, a lot of the same constraints that even my dad's generation had. Every generation we progress. So as a new DJ, you got to know and don't be biased towards any one particular genre of music. Know all music, no pop, no country. Have black people doing country now, with them fans and stuff, and Beyonce and the Cowboys. Like, we got to get diverse, man. And if you're a DJ, you got to be just more aware of the universe. That's what I would say.
Okay. Well, DJ Newmark, it's been a joy interviewing you today. That's pretty much all the questions that I had, and I really enjoyed listening to your life story. And hopefully we could do this again soon in the future.
I just want to say I really appreciate you, Dyme, for extending this opportunity to share platforms. Dyme Magazine is doing the most. I've been watching you from a distance for quite some time now. Your articles are well written. Your photography and your graphics are well designed. Everything that I know of you speaks quality, and I know that you have hands-on and you put your personal touch on everything, and that's something that I certainly can gravitate to because
thank you.
I know it takes a lot of time and resource to do what you do. So thank you for allowing me to tell a little bit of the DJ Newmark story. And for those out there, they can catch me on Instagram at DJ Newmark, DJ Newmark, or any other platform. Just Google me, and then they all come up, man. There's so many I can't remember all of them.